Hello, welcome to the debut video of Connie's channel. Let's start this off as a personal vlog. Yep. So I wanted to vlog today because today is my last day at a company that I've been working at for the last 10 years. And I'm feeling a lot of emotions. When I think about them, I think I can break it down into 3. First of all, I'm happy and excited because it was voluntary. I wanted this, and the reason is because I've been at this company for 10 years and I've been wanting to venture out into different industries and just different experiences. I'm currently doing my master's in business, so I felt like if I didn't leave now, I probably never will. And I do get complacent, I get comfortable, I build attachments to people, places, and the work. This just happened to be good timing, and so here I am. And I've been asking for it and looking forward to it for a very long time. But now that I'm here, the other 2 emotions I feel is sadness. For the most part, I've really loved working for this company all this while. I've had amazing opportunities, amazing managers, met the most amazing people. You know how most people tend to want to keep their personal life and their professional lives separate? For me, that wasn't the case. I've met a lot of amazing people along the way. I live next to a train station, so every time a train passes, I'm just gonna have to wait it out. Where was I? Yeah, so I've met a lot of amazing people along the way. I've been led by amazing people. I've led amazing teams and amazing groups, and I've done a lot. So I'm sad that that is now all going to be in the past with this particular company. But I am extremely grateful for everything that I've experienced, all the people I've met, and everything in the last 10 years at this company has been amazing. I'm also a little bit anxious. I know I've got the skills and I know this is what I wanted and and it's a good thing, but a small voice in my head, you know, it does this thing where I'm like, oh, I've got the skills, I've got the capabilities, I'll find a job, it's okay. And then a little voice says, oh, but what if you don't? What if you end up homeless and broke and you never find a job? And what if nobody wants you? You know, that sort of thing. But I've gone in today, I've cleaned out my locker, and I'm feeling good. And I wanted to record this moment, this day, this point in time in my life. I've spent the last 10 years at this company, and what that means is that is most of my 20s, all of my 20s actually. I started working for this company when I was 19, maybe 20 years old, and now I'm 29. And so I thought, what better a time than now to have a chat about what I learned in my 20s. So here's 20 things that I learned in my 20s. And I was reflecting on that and thinking about it as I was cleaning out my locker at work. And it was crazy, you know. I hadn't been in the office for I reckon about a year now, since my dad got sick. So, and then COVID hit, so we weren't allowed to go back in the office. We were actually recommended and encouraged to work from home, so I did. And when I opened my locker for the first time today, I noticed that there was a huge just pile. I'm a hoarder, and I kind of knew that I was a hoarder, but I didn't realize the extent to which I was hoarding until I opened my locker today for the first time in a year, and a reflection of my time at this company was just staring at me. It had my files, my training documents, my processes I'd created. It had my pencil case. It had my gym gear. It had there was a lot of, it was a mixture, a beautiful mixture of personal and professional. It was proof of my journey in the last 10 years. And so I spent a bit of time doing that, and it was great. And I reflected on the 20 things that I learned in my 20s, and today that is what I'm going to be talking about. So let's jump right in. I'm very excited, and I'm mostly interested to look back at this video in the future, to have a look at what I'm reflecting on and going through at this point in time, because everyone says, actually it's a bit mixed. Some people say that your life starts at 30, and they give me a few things to look forward to: confidence, you know what you want, you've got experience, you know, that sort of thing, you've got quality people in your life by now. And then others are saying, you know, it's the beginning of the end and time goes by so quickly, you know, you blink in your 40s. So it will be interesting at a later date when I'm in my 30s, perhaps, to look back at this. So the first thing I learned in my 20s is that what other people think of me is basically the most irrelevant and unimportant thing ever. What I mean by that is, it's not that if somebody told me I was a jerk that I wouldn't reflect on it or I would dismiss it, but I used to be that kid that cared about, you know, oh, are they going to like what I'm wearing, or do people think I'm funny, or do people think I'm pretty, do boys like me? And that is so silly. Like, haters are gonna hate, people are gonna dislike you even if you haven't done anything to them, and I've just learned to do me. Another thing I learned in my 20s is that it's better to do a little bit of something good than nothing at all. And that comes from my reflection of the course that I'm doing in my MBA, actually, because I've been so focused in sustainability. I've been on a wild preach when it comes to fast fashion and, you know, trying to make a little bit of a difference about the climate crisis. So sorry, Instagram friends, please bear with me as I flow through these phases, but it is meaningful. So just because they've always been there doesn't mean they always have to. In the last couple of years, I've done a lot of reflection on my friends groups, and not just friends groups, just people that I surround myself with in my life. You become very much like the people that you include in your life and that you see on a regular basis. And I realized I was friends with a lot of people because I've just always been friends with them, and just because they haven't done something wrong doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be a constant presence in my life. And I was starting to learn that this year as well. There is actually more power in saying no than yes. Don't get me wrong, I'm very much a yes person. I'm very open to new experiences, activities, etc., living life. I'm very much a yes person. But I've learned that in situations or instances where I really want to say no, I should just say no. And I have been. And there is certainly more power in saying no than yes, sometimes. Another thing I learned is relationships are not sustained only by love. Love is needed, but trust, respect, and friendship is there too. So what I mean by this is love is very important, don't get me wrong. And I think it's very important that love has a big presence in relationships. But and I've been in and out of a few toxic relationships and have realized that, you know, just because you love somebody doesn't mean that that's enough to keep a relationship going. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I've sort of just realized that I've got different needs, and, you know, a lot of people say, you know, love is all you need to fix everything and you have to be patient and kind, and that is all still true. Just personally, on a personal level, I want to aim to be best friends with my partner, and if I'm not going to connect with somebody on a best friend level where I can trust them entirely, then that's a no-go. That's a deal breaker. If I can't be best friends with a partner, if I can't see myself entirely trusting and having a good time to get through the bad times with a partner, then that is a deal breaker for me. Another thing I learned is who is in your life matters because you become like them, which is very similar to what I'd said before about how just because you've had people in your life that have always been there doesn't mean that they always have to. You have to be conscious of who you surround yourself with and who wants to grow with you, and if they don't want to grow, you know, that's okay too. You may not necessarily have to be close friends with them, you can still maintain friendships, but yeah, I've been a lot more conscious of that. I've learned to question everything that I've been taught about food, meat and meat byproducts. Now, when I think about my diet, I feel like it is strongly influenced by intergenerational teachings and sociocultural influences as well. And what I mean by that is sociocultural norms that have been placed on me from a very young age, and I think those are the hardest to sort of shake off and question, because you don't want to think that your whole life is a lie. And it's not, I'm not saying that it is, but culturally, we have a lot of meat in Chinese cuisine. So very much like, you know, Western meals, we've got primarily a dish of protein that is accompanied by a large amount of carbs, in our instance probably rice or noodles, and then some veggies on the side. And vegetables and fruits are always a side or a snack, and they're rarely a main, you know, and if it's a main, people sort of just pick out a little bit compared to the meat, which is seen as a prized and valued item. And I've started to look at meat very differently, you know, when we go out to eat. You sort of see, all right, if you see a vegetarian dish versus a meat dish that costs the same, we seem to value the meat dish more. But really, the vegetarian dish is going to be healthier for us. And so what that means is we should probably be choosing the vegetarian dish, because just because the price is the same, we're buying better health with that price, if that makes sense. And I'm by no means a vegetarian or a vegan, but according to the World Health Organization standards, a healthy amount of red meat is 23 grams per day. In terms of a visual on what that equates to, that would probably be one small eye fillet per week. Now, I eat a lot more than that. I know a lot of the people I know eat a lot more than that, and I'm not saying that meat is the crux of all the issues in the world, but I've started to question, you know, why do we eat the way we eat? Why do we have 3 meals a day? Why do we eat so much meat? Why do we eat these certain things? And I'm starting to question all of that in my 20s, because I'm wanting to live a healthier and more balanced lifestyle, basically. Another thing I learned in my 20s is marriage, house, kids is not the end goal, nor is marrying success. Marrying your best friend is most important. I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. I used to be that person that was like, I have to be married by 25, 26 the latest, and then I have to have kids by 28 because I don't want to be an old mom. And you know, I want the house and I want a soccer mom car. Don't get me wrong, I still want these things. It's just that from a very young age, I feel like we were not groomed, but we were easily influenced to believe that that was everything. That was end goal, end all be all. And now that I've sort of, especially because I've spent the last 10 years in a job that I really love, I realize that career is also important. Living life, traveling, experiencing creativity, exploring the many facets of myself has been extremely important, more important than the whole marriage and kids. So I'm no longer rushing it. I'm chill, but I still want those things. I've just changed my mindset of when and how I want them, and I'm very proud of that actually. I want to be the honest but supportive friend without judging. An example of this is if I knew that my friend was making terrible choices or decisions, I think it's important that I'm still a supportive friend and I try not to judge the terrible decisions that they're making or have made. But also I think it's important to be that friend that calls them out on their BS. And the reason I think that that's important is because I would want my friends to call me out if I was being ridiculous. And that is part of wanting your friends to be better people, I think. And that is currently happening in my life as well, where I feel some of my friends maybe making bad choices. I definitely don't agree with it. I think it's very terrible. Just waiting for these trains to go past. Yeah, so I may not agree with some of the decisions that my friends are making, but ditching them is not the answer. Yes, do I agree? Go back to the point of surround yourself with the people who you want to be, who have the same values and stuff. Yes, but you know, I think it's important that call your friend out, give them chances to be better, try and understand the situation that they're in. If I myself am not in that exact situation, I cannot judge. That's where I'm at. Okay, another important lesson that I've learned is in the moment, it may be hard to understand why, but when I look back, it all makes sense. And this has happened in so many events and circumstances in my life, in my 20s, where I felt completely shattered, where I felt like, you know, oh, it's the end of the world, heartbreak, fetal position, crying, you know, multiple times, many times in my 20s. And I'm very emotional, so I just allow myself to feel what I gotta feel, and I express it the way I need to express it, as long as I'm not hurting anybody. And in that moment, things don't make sense. You know, why me? Why is this happening? Why am I going through this? It shouldn't. And I become so stubborn. You know, I think it shouldn't happen. You know, something's terribly wrong. And sometimes I take risky choices and make risky decisions on my career and what to do. But, you know, give it some time, and I look back and I realize that event, that suffering or discomfort that I went through had to happen in order for me to have what I have now, that I am extremely grateful for and that I'm extremely happy with, to become who I am today, who I'm really proud of. So another thing I learned in my 20s is being whoever I want and expressing that accordingly. And that has a lot to do with that first point. Some of these are very similar, I'm sorry. But it's similar to, you know, what other people think of me doesn't matter. And now I'm just being whoever I want. And, you know, my parents raised me thinking that she's going to be a lady. Joke's on them. They sent me to an all-girls school and everything, and they dressed me up in pretty floral dresses, and I did not turn out how they had hoped that I would turn out, but I think I did okay. But now I just express who I am accordingly, unapologetically, and I feel like I've really adapted my own style, and I'm so much more confident in myself. Some days I want to dress like a 16-year-old. I'm going to dress like a 16-year-old in my overalls and my singlets. You know, if I want to do 2 buns on my head, and if I want to just look cute, I'm going to do it. You know I'm almost 30, and I know that there's some expectation of the woman that I'm supposed to be, but I'm loving myself. Next thing, I learned that haters are going to hate, and do I really need to explain that one? Just, I'm gonna do me. You do you, girl. I've learned to focus on one thing that I care about at a time. One thing that I want to change, and try and do it well. I think in the process of growing and learning and adapting my own identity, I tried to sort of do the right thing or just be the right person a lot. And what that meant was, you know how sometimes when you're doing uni assignments and you've got a million tabs open, and then you lose track of, you know, which tab you were looking at or which one had the information that you needed and what references. There was too much. There was just way too much, and I couldn't deal with it. And so the other thing is, there are just so many issues in the world. There are too many issues, and I couldn't possibly care about all of them. You know, animal cruelty, world hunger, the wealth gap. There was just poverty. There was just way too much. And so climate change. I've decided to care about one thing, try and make an impact, try and make my dedication or input to it meaningful before moving on to the next. I've learned that I shouldn't judge, and if something about someone else bothers me, I should ask myself why. It's me, not them, especially if they have not done anything to hurt me. Yeah, don't judge people, just don't judge. Education is, I'm moving on to the next one. Education is so important, and it doesn't always have to be paid. What I mean by that is, you don't necessarily have to enroll yourself into a university course or an apprenticeship, but we should, in my personal opinion, continue to learn every day. And if not every day, often. And it's important to understand that there's no, you'll never get to a point where you know everything, where you understand everything, whether that be about the world or about yourself. And so in my 20s, I learned that because as a child, I always thought, oh, adults have it together, by the time you reach 30, you've learned everything you need to learn. And I think that came from the schooling system, perhaps, because you once you graduate, you've learned everything there, move aside, let's move on to the next harder stuff, you've learned all that, move aside. And I just thought, when I was younger, I thought that when you got to your 30s or 40s or 50s, you know, that caps. Like, surely by then you've learned everything that you need to learn, and that's not true. And I've realized that in my 20s that that's not true. So I'm continuing to learn. I am doing my MBA, but when I'm not studying, I'm listening to podcasts, I'm watching documentaries, and I'm reading books and things like that. And there's just so much to learn about that isn't necessarily theory based or you know, scientific, mathematical, or literature. It could just be about life, it could be about emotions, it could just be about self-development. It is okay to give more than you gain, and it's okay to be at a disadvantage sometimes. My parents, whilst they've taught me a lot, they've also taught me what not to be. Don't know, I didn't want to make that sound bad, because I love my parents very much, but they were always very calculating, you know. Oh, you know, they ripped me off, you know, if a store ripped them off by $1, they would be very upset if they were ripped off by $1, or if, you know, somebody cut them off. Like if somebody overtook my dad whilst he was driving, he would get overly upset, you know, as if somebody cut in line. And, you know, sometimes, and it's okay, you know, and in friendships, you know, my parents were always thinking about, you know, how much somebody had invited them over to dinner versus them inviting someone else over for dinner. You know, it's sort of like, oh, this person's only invited me over for twice, so why should I have them over more than twice? And that's not the kind of mindset that I want to have. I want it to be, now that I'm older, be the person that gives, because I find that there's so much more satisfaction, or I find a lot more satisfaction when I am giving. You can change your mind about things and admit it. It's part of your growth. Oh, I have had so many cringy moments. I don't know why, but my cringy moments happen just before I go to bed, and it's so annoying because it keeps me up, and I start thinking about, you know, oh, why did I do that? Why did I say that to that person? Or why did I hold that opinion? I just sound like such an idiot. And in some instances, actually, I'd reflected on it so much that I'd realized that my actions were wrong. I'd admitted it, and I'd gone out of my way to go and apologize to somebody who probably thought nothing of it. And I thought that that was important to me, that I did that, because I felt like it would haunt me until I did. And I realized that it's okay to admit that I was wrong, that, you know, maybe I wasn't the best person, maybe my opinion was completely inaccurate, completely incorrect, and now I think differently. I'm sorry, I'm recording this outside. I realized that it wasn't such a great idea. I learnt to be independent. I learnt to sort out my bills, I sort out my paperwork, I learned to cook, I learned to look after myself, I learned to manage an investment property. And not gonna lie, it's scary. Like, some of the shit that you have to do when you're an adult is scary. Like, I've never managed an investment property before, and I had no idea what I needed to do. I probably got ripped off by lawyers and the banks and things like that. But I learned to be independent. I learned to cook a lot of recipes, and I'm totally into my cooking and baking now, whilst I used to hate it. No, I'm not saying I like it, but at least I know I'm not going to starve, and I'm very proud of that. Another important thing I learned in my 20s is health is the best investment, and that mental health is just as important as physical health, and we have to invest in that too. And the last thing is, of course, someone is mowing their lawn right now. I'm going to get through this last one quickly because someone's doing the gardening. But the last thing I learned in my 20s is that there is no good or bad, there just is. Happiness is not the norm, and I need to drop the why me mentality. In short, I learned that the world doesn't owe me shit. Like, you know, I used to have this, why me? Why is this bad thing happening to me? And it's like, why not you? You know, the world doesn't owe you anything. Happiness is not the norm. Things happen, and just as much as good things happen, bad things will too. You know, good, happy things are not the norm. And should I be going through a very, very good phase, then I'm lucky. You know, I'm very, very lucky. And it's made me a lot more grateful for the good happenings, the good people, and the good times. Thank you for watching my first YouTube video. I hope I haven't bored you too much. I actually wanted to give a quick shout out to my friend Elaine. I told her I'd dedicate my first YouTube video to her. I was sitting in my living room watching TV one night and she'd messaged me and she said, hey, why don't you do YouTube videos? And it was just really nice, you know, to have someone believe in me and to encourage me. And it's not that I don't have friends that do that, but it was just really nice for someone to go out of their way to encourage creativity. Anyway, thank you. And I want to thank my friends and family for their ongoing support as well. Let me know if you've been doing any self-reflections. Let me know if you want to listen to any podcasts that I've got on my list. I'll recommend them. Maybe you'll never listen to them, and that's fine. But if you're going through self-reflection and you've learned something, whether you be in your teens, your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, doesn't matter. And if you are going through something similar that I am, whether it be voluntary or involuntary redundancy, I just want to let you know that perseverance is the key, and don't freak out. Things are going to be okay. You know, you might be going through a hard time, particularly with COVID at the moment. I hope you're staying safe. I hope that you keep your chin up and you work on those things. Have a chat to me. Drop me a comment if you'd like, and I'm always open to having some healthy discourse. Thanks. Bye.